Thank you for joining us.
Namaste.
So, today I thought one of the areas we haven't focused on in a while is the side body. I thought that we would do some focusing on that, and I have brought out a bolster. I've got a blanket there and I've got blocks, so I can show you. Particularly, it's the first two poses that I want to show you. But other than that, you could do this straight on your mat. But I will demonstrate how you use the bolster or the blocks to do these poses, or the rolled blanket, whatever you have handy. Let's begin, and I'll take the bolster and show you. And there's so many bolsters out there that aren't just for yoga. People have bolsters as pillows. So the reason that bolsters are so good, because they have a real solidity about them. So very firm and very supportive. And the reason I recommend bolsters is they're so great for feet up the wall pose. I mean, they really, really work well for that. Although you can create feet up the wall with blocks under your pelvis or blankets. So there's many ways to do things, and you don't just need particular props. So do not think that you need particular props. So I'm going to do the first pose where I bring my hip up to the bolster, extend my arm, my head is in my shoulder, and then the top leg and the back leg form a little V. So the top leg comes forward, the bottom leg comes a little forward, but you want them even. You don't want to be leaning one way or the other. And then you hold the top wrist here and just start to open and stretch into the side ribs. It also will open this side hip area, side waist area, and you might get a nice stretch under the armpit or in the shoulders. So this is a really nice sort of passive, I don't know if I want to say passive, because you are activating the legs and you're activating, by stretching the upper arm. But it's a reclining pose that can have more restoration in it as well. And especially if you've had a day where you feel like you've been, not breathing too well, maybe there's been a lot going on and you haven't been able to feel that you're really using your full lung power. You could just go into a pose like this. Just focus on getting a stretch through that side body. You've got your head supported on the arms, so you don't have to support your head like upright. And by lying on your side, you've got more parts of your body on the floor than you do sitting or standing up. So that's what's really nice about this pose. And as I said, I'm using the bolster. You could put a block here or just roll a blanket. The block might have a bit of a harder edge, but this pose works on the softer blocks if that's what you have. And you can do a little bit of rotation, like rolling forward or rolling back a little bit to really open that armpit. So you can play around with a little mobility here of rolling the face to point towards the mat, and then inhale, face up to the ceiling. Do that again, just roll the head on the arm so you're facing down, and then inhale, rolling back, opening up even more. It's going to get into that armpit and even the upper chest a little bit. And then slowly soften your body to come out of the pose. And you can just bend the knees on top of each other, the head's still on the arm, and then you can push on the bolster. And I'm going to go the other way so you can see me and I can talk to the camera. So again, I'm lying with my side waist here connects, my hips connect to the bolster. Top leg is forward, back leg is behind me, and I'm going to look at them just to notice their positioning so that one leg's not further from the other. You want them in a nice little sort of V, and then lying down with your head on the forearm and holding the top wrist. And one side of your body might be tighter than the other, and that might be the side you want to spend more time in this pose. And this could be a pose that you just do on your own, like at the end of the day, or you got to, maybe you're watching TV in the evening, you can just kind of hang out in a pose like this. Just giving yourself an opportunity to bring in more oxygen, more air, really open the lungs. And again, like we did on the other side, just roll the head looking towards the mat so that the arm rolls a little forward. And then inhale, roll it back, look up to the ceiling, see if you get a little bit more opening in the chest, in the armpit. And then again, roll forward. Inhale, coming back up. Looking up to the ceiling. And then again, roll forward. One more inhale, looking up. And then slowly bend the knees, coming up. And then I'm going to show another pose, and I'm going to move over to the other side of the bolster so you can see me. This time I'm going to put my side hips on the bolster. I'm going to bring my feet together, my legs together. So it's as if I'm standing. So imagine yourself in Tadasana. And then putting the head down on the arm and just putting the hands together and the legs together. So again, this is almost like a little bit of a side stretch, but it's like standing in Tadasana, but leaning a little bit to one side. Now this, for me, but it might be a different area for you, is getting me right here into that sort of towards the hip area, right in here in that side hip. For you, it might be different, but we'll stay here for a couple of breaths. And to find the balance here, it's a good idea to engage the abdominals so that the arms aren't leaning too far back or too far forward. You're trying to find yourself in a Tadasana shape, so a straight up and down shape. Couple of more breaths. And then again, you can bend the knees, bend the arms. And again, I'm going to switch over to the other side. So hips on the bolster or the blocks or the towel or the blanket. Really press through the feet, press the hands together, try to straighten the arms, straighten the legs. Try to position yourself in lying down Tadasana, but with your hips on the bolster. And again, for me, I'm feeling the stretch in here in the side hip or a little bit of the back hip. But you know, you could be really different. You could feel it more in your waist, maybe you feel it more in your leg. I mean, we're all built a little differently. And then slowly release that side and just bend up. And just because I have this here, I'm going to vary what we're doing. We're going to do this little, so it's like the legs go into a frog position. You bring your hips on the bolster and then place the forehead on your hands. And again, if you've got a blanket, you can do that, but this is just a nice release in the lower back. And you can perhaps feel how you can really breathe into the backside body here. And then since you're already here, come into big toes together, knees wide, and you can bring your body onto the bolster or whatever you have, arms down. So it's just a little different way of practicing this pose. Or you can take your support and put it more into your thigh sockets and then come forward from there. So by doing that, you can create more space here in that side hip, side waist area here. And then slowly come up. Just put your prop off to the side. And then we'll do a little bit more activity. So come on to your side. We'll do half plank pose to just start engaging that area muscularly. So you make a fist, you want your forearm under your shoulder. Now again, the variation is 1 foot in front or a foot behind, but you can inhale, go up, and feel how you have to engage that side of the body to lift up. A couple of breaths. And then you can come down and roll to the other side. Bring the feet together. Again, you could bring a foot in front or a foot behind to support you. You got the fist, you got the forearm. Engage the bicep. Come up to half plank. Or I should say half side plank, I guess. And then come back through the center. And we'll put the hands a little bit in front of the shoulders, tuck the toes under, and go in to a downward dog. And then since this is the first downward dog, you can have a little bit of bending in the knees, a little bit of walking through the feet. A couple of breaths here. And bring the knees down to big toes together, knees wide. come up again. You can walk the hands a little forward, tuck the toes, go into a downward dog. And we're just going to do a little variation here. Inhale the right leg up into three-legged, and then bend at the knee and see if you can feel and the heels going towards the other side. Now, we're not really going to turn here yet, pivot, but I want you to see if you can feel how you can create length in that side. And then straighten the leg into three-legged dog again and bring that down. And then lift the other leg and bend at the knee like you're bringing the foot towards this other opposite sit bone without pivoting your hips. But perhaps you get more stretch in that side waist. And then bring that leg long, foot down, and again come down into big toes together, knees wide. Just go through that again so that you can feel how that impacts your body. So again, come into a downward dog. Inhale the right leg into three-legged. Bend at the knee. See if you can feel more length, perhaps. Then bring it back to three-legged. Come down to downward dog. Inhale the other leg. Bend at the knee, bringing the heel towards the sit bone. Opening that side waist. Bring the leg back to three-legged. And down into downward dog. And then again, inhale together. Inhale, come down into big toes together. Knees wide. And again, inhale, coming up to downward dog. Exhale into downward dog. Inhale the legs up. Bend again. And then see if you can actually start to bring it around. We won't bring it down. We'll just bring it around. See if you can get a good stretch here. Then bring it back around into three-legged and back down. And inhale that leg up. Bend at the knee, coming around. More stretch through that side, waist, and hip. And then coming back around, a three-legged dog. Back to downward. And bring the knees down into big toes together, knees wide. Inhale, coming up, coming into downward facing. Now this time we're going to go into downward facing. We're going to go into side plank. So again, you can do modifications, but if you can go into side plank, do it, or you can put a foot in front or behind. See if you can find that side plank pose, really using underside of the body to support you there. Then coming back into downward facing dog. And then coming back into the other side, into calf plank, side plank. You can do the variation if you need to. And then coming back into downward dog. And then going into big toes together. wide. Go through one more cycle like that. Come up to all fours. You might want to walk the hands forward to come into downward facing. And then coming into side plank, where you can bring a foot in front if you need to. Coming around to downward dog. Coming into the other side to side plank. Coming back around to downward dog. And then come down to big toes together. Knees wide. Breaths there. So for the next round, we're going to go into a variation, but feel free to stay with what you just did or putting the foot in front or behind. So we're going to go into sort of the tree variation. So come up and tuck the toes into downward dog. Come into side plank. And the tree variation is bringing the top foot up to the inner thigh if you can. You can always bring it down here towards the ankle if you need to. And then bringing it back to side plank, coming back around to downward dog. Inhale, coming into side plank. Tree variation. Side plank. Downward dog. Come back into big toes together. Knees wide, a couple of breaths here. Take a couple of breaths there just to see how you're doing. I had no idea what I was going to do and just kind of grew from there. So now, come on down to lay on your side. We'll do Anantasana. So it's easy to line yourself up on your mat, extending through the legs and the arm, and then bending that underside hand to support your head. Now this is where we'll go into just that little tree variation first, where you just bring the foot into the thigh. And you'll notice that in order to maintain your balance, you really do have to engage your abdominals and not let your hips drop to the back here. And then see if you can just hold the big toe. So that's the first stage of starting to extend the leg. Stay here for a few breaths. And then you can slowly try to straighten it. I mean, you can stay here and either hold the big toe and try to straighten it, or you can just take your hand and wrap it around your thigh or your calf and just hold that leg. But notice how you have to use those abdominals to stay on your side instead of rolling back. Slowly release the toe, bring it back into tree variation, and then back to the feet long, and then change sides. So coming to the other side, lengthen the underside of the body so it's as if you were standing, but you're on your mat. And then bend at the elbow, supporting the head. And the first stage is just to bend the knee, place the foot on the thigh, or maybe it needs to be a little lower, just depending on your body. And find that stability, that engagement in the abdominals, but also extending the lower leg, really extending through the heel and the foot. And then see if you can get those big toes. And the next stage is slowly trying to straighten it. And like I said, you can hold on to the leg if you need to. Or you can straighten it out. Bend it down back to the thigh. Lengthen between the legs. And we're just going to do that again. So switch sides again. Coming down. Extend through the side. Bend the elbow. Place the hand under the head. Place the top foot like tree, finding the big toe to hold with the first two fingers and the thumb. And slowly straighten it if you can, or hold underneath it. Bending, bringing the foot back to the thigh. Extend through both legs. Coming around to the other side. Extend through the lower body, bending at the elbows, supporting the head. Bringing the top foot into the tree variation. Finding that balance. Finding the big toe with the first two fingers and the thumb. Slowly straightening it if you can, or doing the alternative of holding the leg. Slowly release, spin that leg. And then we're going to go into one last variation of what we just did more actively. And again, you can tone it down and just do the tree variation if that works for you. If you want to go further, go further. So we're coming into downward dog. Then we'll come into side plank. And either you can come into tree, or I haven't done this in a long time. You can try this. Bring it down, down, back to downward dog. And then coming back into side plank, tree variation, holding the big toe variation, back down, coming back, and big toes together, knees wide. That might have felt a little bit rushed. But it's just a way of showing you how you put things together if you want to add more variation. So if you happen to have your bolster, you could do feet up the wall. You could also put them under your knees and do a shavasana this way. Or you can put your feet in the chair. Whatever you have around you helps you go into a form of shavasana. As you let yourself settle into this pose, just notice what your response to that practice was. It was a kind of a different practice. Could have gone either way. Could have been a very restorative poses, but it really went into a more active mode. So perhaps take your awareness to your side body right now. What are you noticing in your side waist, side hips, side ribs, into the armpits? And just notice where your breath is moving. And then if you're in a pose where you can take the right leg and just tense it a little bit off the floor, or if you're doing feet up the wall, you can sort of tense it away from the wall and then slowly relax it and release it back to the floor or back to the wall. And then see if you can take your left leg and tense it away from the wall or the floor. And slowly release it back to the floor or back to the wall. And then, if it's possible, see if you can tense both your legs. And then soften and release it back to the floor or back to the wall. And then see if you can tense that right arm and that fist. Release and soften it to the floor or the wall. More likely it's the floor. And take your left arm and see if you can tense through the fist and the arm. And then soften and release to the floor. And then see if you can tense both your arms and your fists together. And then soften and release to the floor. And it's really nice to tense that face towards the nose. And then really open the face, jaw, eyes, and then soften the whole face. Back to the ears, and the back of the head. Thank you for watching and joining us. Namaste. movement to your fingers, your toes, your hands, your feet. Take a nice big breath and stretch through the body before you roll yourself to your side. Come up to sitting. Just give yourself permission throughout the day to just be surprised and delighted. See something new when you can. Thank you and namaste. Have a beautiful day.